Welcome back.
Welcome back, ladies and
gentlemen. With these hands.
Yeah.
Where's the nut button?
Oh, it's right there,
okay.
flipped over. Will you grab me that cup, too, that's right there?
Is it coffee?
No, it's that stuff that I had last time, but I didn't have anything to mix it in that has a lid.
Oh.
So you're like...
That's okay, we're running out of to-go cups, so me and Cass bought these children's ones, and they were fine, they're cute.
Yeah.
They were $3, $3?
Yeah, it was like $3. She has the dinosaurs and I have the unicorns. She was like, I really want this. Is it worth it getting this dinosaur one? And there was like one unicorn. And I was like, if you get the dinosaurs, I'll get the unicorn. She's like, deal.
Deal.
It's really unusual to drink something out of that's not warm.
Is it cold?
Weird.
So you're like,
yeah.
You're like, this don't feel right.
Not expecting it.
It feels wrong.
Something feels wrong about this one.
Alright. So we're on.
Alright, so welcome to Reading Between the Wines. We actually have wine this time instead of random vodka and Diet Dr. Pepper.
Or
Malibu.
Or tequila. We didn't bring tequila, have we? Yeah.
No.
I don't think we have.
No.
I think it's always been vodka.
That'd be I feel like if we brought tequila, it'd be an aggressive podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we should do an aggressive book.
Read this fucking book!
What if we did tequila for when we read The Art of Not Giving a Fuck?
Ooh!
That'd
Let me
actually
just
be
do
a
a
good
bunch
call.
of...
Yeah.
We should make...
Stop giving a fuck!
What I really want to do is make like a drinking game or something like that, but we'll have to do like one for like shots if it's tequila, and we'll have to do a tequila shot.
Oh God,
I know,
can't
like,
handle
you guys are
shots.
pussies. You guys are
I will
pussies.
drink you under a table. I
know.
just can't handle shots.
Can
They
I
make
have a
me
lime
sick.
at least?
Yeah,
Like,
no, we'll have like salt,
Yeah.
so it'll be like the official tequila shot, you know.
Okay.
But we could have like some sort of thing where it's like, I don't know, I've never read that book yet, so we'd have to figure it out.
I'm gonna have to bring like
want it
a
official.
sleeping bag and just sleep in this room. It's too fucked up.
You'll be like, all right, good night.
It's been a great podcast. I'm gonna leave the stream open and take a nap.
Yeah, you guys can watch me nap if you want. It's a fun time.
They got really
Yeah.
popular on TikTok.
We do some shots, but we also have mixed drinks. So like you take a shot every hour. Or
Okay, yeah, so like space out the shots, but then you have something to like casually sip on.
Exactly.
Sip.
A sip on. A sip for my sips.
Shout outs to the Sims and everyone's
Shouts
DMs right now.
Yeah, honestly, one of my Sims have not stopped talking to me, and I'm like, the fuck is happening right now?
What are you
I literally
doing?
messaged him and I was like, hey, how have you been?
Oh
I simped back.
You're simping for the simp.
I simped for the simp, and then I was like, nope.
no! I think there's a fine line of keeping the Sims, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't
there
give them
is.
like
You don't-
enough attention where they actually think it's real, but you gotta hit them with that, oh hey, what's up?
Yeah, you gotta like occasionally talk to
Yeah.
them, so then they're like, you've graced me with your presence.
That's what I did, but then it's okay. He's a Jesus boy. I ain't about it.
Oh.
He is very like he works for one of those like mega churches.
Oh yeah, he's probably got money then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
Slide that Venmo over. Be like, hey, what's up, boo? How are
I
you?
was
This is my
saying,
Venmo.
I even have him on fucking Animal Crossing so I can get free stuff.
Oh, is this your Animal Crossing simp?
Yeah, but he wants to FaceTime all the time, and I'm like, I don't know FaceTiming.
Mm-mm.
Like, I'm just not even a fan of FaceTiming my friends, let alone my Sims.
Right? The only person I FaceTime is Calford.
And that's because he FaceTimes you first.
No, literally. He'll call me, and then usually I won't answer the first time, and then the second time, he'll call me and be like, answer, bitch. I know you're up. And I'm like, okay, hi, what's going on?
I don't think I've ever FaceTimed anyone in my life.
Really?
Like, unless they do it to me.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Like,
Yeah.
I can't think of one person.
I think I've done it before when I was drunk and we wanted to talk to like Brody or something because he's in Louisiana. And we're all drunk and we're like, we want to talk to him. And so we FaceTimed him and he didn't answer.
Yeah.
Asshole.
Yes.
Asshole. But
Anyways.
book.
I did switch us categories in Twitch.
Ooh.
So we were doing IRL for a long time, which is the most popular one.
Yeah.
I bounced us back to talk shows and podcasts to see if maybe we get a different variety of
Different
people.
kind of.
Because IRL is
going
so
on.
flooded, but IRL also has the better opportunity.
Oh,
But
okay.
podcast and talk show has less people, so it's easier to get exposure. Just less people go to that.
Go to that category, yeah.
Fair.
So we'll see.
So
It's worth a shot.
how many of y'all 3 people
What
from that
are
category?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? But anyways,
So-
let's talk about the book.
We read Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. And we tried to do a podcast about it earlier, and then we spent the entire podcast not talking about the book.
It was kind
Because this book is very thought-provoking.
It is.
And it just, you go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
So,
Because I'm trying to think where we left off. So we were right getting into...
did we cover Lady Bag Lady?
No,
we
did
covered
not. I don't remember
So-
that.
Beautiful. Lost names now because it's been
Yeah.
2 or 3
I mean, we
weeks.
talked about Guts. I know. We talked about
Miss America.
Yeah, we left off on Miss America, which
Yeah.
The second
Prettier.
chapter! Oh no!
is...
I'll bust it out.
There's a
pull up-
lot of.
Okay, so I've been thinking about how to say this in a way that makes sense. And I feel like this is the way that I think the book is amazing. This is also the way I think the book is a complete illusion
Got
to
it.
make you feel so much more intense. And like, there's a certain euphoria when you use your brain, when you think about something and analyze something. And the way that this story is set up, it's like a character description in a poem, and then a short story they wrote, and then a chapter of what's going on in this theater. And there are 13 people. They signed up for a writer's retreat. They all go by code names like Sister Vigilante and Countess Foresight. And then they're locked in this theater, and they begin... The leader is Mr. Whittier, and he is an assistant Tess Clark. And they're kind of trying to motivate the people to write, but the writers all revolt because they're trapped. And they are trapped, that's fair. But they begin to make villains out of Mr. Whittier and Tess. And they begin to plan how they'll get famous from this story
Yes.
of being locked in this theater. They begin cutting off their own toes and fingers.
And Wiener.
And
Oh,
Wiener.
and Wiener.
That one was... Oh.
That seemed...
And
yeah,
Somebody
haunted
eats
me.
it.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I was like, what? What?
What?
What?
But... And it's a very, like, intense and dramatic story. But the way that it's set up with this character description, which is a lot of information, and it's also a lot of metaphors, so it makes you think from the get-go. And then it's these short stories which each deal with a different theme and a different, I don't know,
It's like a different writing element compared
Yeah.
to
It
all
is.
of them.
Yeah.
all of them.
They all seem like literally a different style and everything.
Which blew me away, which props to good old Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
The ability
Good
to
joke.
Good Chuck.
write in so many different styles in one book and still have it be cohesive is really impressive because it's
Yeah.
I mean I struggle I write on like as a hobby I like to write and I'll struggle staying in one pretense like I'll write something like oh I wrote that in third person instead of first person or whatever it might be
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it just doesn't flow with the book but he was able to accomplish doing multiple styles and not make you sit there and be like
Wait a
the fuck is it
minute.
written like that?
What the fuck? Because it like, I don't know, he makes like very clear transitions without making it like,
Yeah.
all right, now back to this.
Mhm.
It's just kind of like you automatically know that that's what's going on, you know? And you're, ooh.
I think with what
But-
you're saying too is like when you start getting into the book and when you get to what the idea is, like what the main story is going to be, you really do get attached in a way because you're like, well, why don't I know any of these people's names? Why don't I know what their main objective is? Why don't they just write their story? Why are they doing this? And then all of a sudden you're 6 hours in the book and you're like, well, why the fuck aren't they doing it still?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Why do they keep making these excuses?
Wait a
And that's
minute.
when you start realizing, like, oh, this is bigger than...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is bigger than just a book.
Whoa there.
I also think it tackles so many themes and problems in society,
Mhm,
and they're all in short stories.
right.
And so you come across that, and then you think about it, and it, like, it creates a clear perspective from you, and it's relatable. At least some of these stories are relatable to everyone, and then it's back to the main story. And you even begin to forget the short stories, but you don't forget that feeling.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yellow.
And so that feeling carries across into the main story and makes the main story even more intense for you.
Yeah.
Purely by writing style.
Right.
I agree.
When I learned someone else's backstory, I started rooting for that person until I learned the next backstory. I'm like, oh, what about them? And then, like,
Actually.
it just kept being, like, someone new and someone new and someone new. And I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think, like, the whole thing, especially since it's, like, a short story, it makes it so hard-hitting. And because each one is kind of different, but still relates to you, you'll read it, and you'll be like, oof. But then it'll be like, all right, now back to reality. And it'll just kind of, like, keep talking, and then it just takes you through, like, this entire roller coaster of, like, just so many different things. So it's, like, a lot to process.
What short story hit you guys the hardest? Like, as far as, like, either personal or you just thought it was the coolest or resonated with you the most?
I'm actually going to... I forgot my notebook. But I'm going to look up the character stories and read them off for a second.
There's the link in the Snapchat if you don't already have it.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, the one that, like, hit me so hard was the police one. With, like, the dolls. That one was, like, the most fucked up. In my opinion.
Yeah.
That one was the most wild, that she would literally, like, the end of what she would do with the dolls to prevent it from happening was like, okay.
Yeah.
I think descriptive-wise, the worst one for me was, I can't remember which lady it was. The lady who worked at the resort that had the hot springs.
Something frostbite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That one was...
Isn't it like Mistress Frostbite or something like that?
I think the descriptions that he used for the body, like when they fall in there, like I was like,
you're like, what? Oh, we're talking about Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. That's the book we're talking about. I'd say the one for me, well, I don't know, because like I go for like, you know, the most like gruesome one that I was like, ugh. The one that like definitely I had to stop multiple times in was probably like the police one and stuff like that, just because it was like so graphic in that sense of that it kind of like made me uncomfortable to listen to in certain settings, because I'd start listening to it and I'd be at work and I'd be like, what if someone hears me listening to this? They're gonna be like, what the fuck?
You know what? I think when you guys started talking about the police doll one, I didn't have any idea what you were talking about. I think I fucking repressed it because I forgot that one was like
and the thing is they like make it like, I don't know, specifically with that story, because the thing is so this story, what happens is she is like like a counselor for children who are abused and stuff like that for a police station. And
she's a social worker.
Yeah, she's a social worker. And so she had like these rag dolls at first. So then like the kids, if they were like sexually abused and stuff like that, or like just abused in general, she'd be like, it's kind of like the whole, you know, point to the doll. Yeah. Like where they touched you or where they hurt you and all this stuff, and they do that, and then eventually those rag dolls got so worn out from all of these kids like just pointing where they were hurt. She was like, oh, I need to get some new ones. And so she went on and she got the cheapest ones she could find online, and she didn't really read the description as much. She just knew that they were like, you know, a boy doll and a girl doll, and that was it. Turns out that they were basically like realistic like sex dolls basically, but shaped like children. Yeah. And she was like so horrified that she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I didn't even know that was a thing, and that I could get it for like, what is this? And the police chief and all the police officers were like, nah, that's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah. We'll just keep it around.
And then eventually all of the like officers and detectives and stuff would need the dolls for like specific assignments and all this stuff. And like, you know, from the context that they're taking them and they're like having sex with these dolls that are shaped like children.
And she also has to clean them out.
Yeah, and she has to like clean them out and everything. And they'll like put like lipstick and like
dress them up. Didn't someone like pierce?
Yeah, like pierce them and like put little fake tattoos on them.
Yeah. Well, and it was crazy too, because then they would be like, they'd be like, also too, then she'd like find receipts of like people being like, oh, I need reimbursement for this hotel. It was a stakeout, but I needed the dolls for that stakeout. Or like going to restaurants. It's bad.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Bad. Until like bad bitch moved, and like my favorite part is when she put razor blades in all the holes.
Yeah.
And I was like,
you're like,
good.
Hell yeah. Because then someone, like, my favorite thing is when she did that, and then someone came in and was like, they're like, what was it? Their tongue was like split in half or something like that. And they're like, who did this? And she was like,
what's up with it?
It's like, you get what you get, bitch.
The crazy part about it, too, is that, like, she's, like, a hero. But at the, like, also, too, she started, like, associating them with, like, as her children. Which is even crazier because at the end of the day, it's dolls.
Yeah.
But, like...
I think that's a human thing, though, because, like, if, you know, we give animals and their pets a lot of human characteristics, or, like, stuffed animals and different things like that. So I think that, I almost wonder if just because she saw, she could visibly see that they looked like children, that she just immediately had that, like, either that motherly instinct or that... just this normal human instinct to be like, well, this isn't right, and these not okay. If these were real kids, like, I would have to help them.
Exactly. I feel like, honestly, just because of her job especially, that she associates these dolls with all of the kids that she's helped, and like sees all these kids who are hurt, and is like these dolls, even though they're not like obviously people, they're still in the same exact situations that all of these kids have been in, and like all of this stuff.
Right.
That she's like, that's not okay. And then they're also, it's being done by the people who are supposed to protect them. You know? Yeah. And so she's just like, that's not okay. And when she like, what was crazy to me is when all of the like officers and stuff like that were just like, I don't see the issue with that. And then tried to get it back from her. And she's like, no. And like goes on like a whole police chase of them trying to get back these sex dolls.
And also the fact that she talked to her superior about the issue, like, multiple times.
Yeah.
And the superior was just like, it's fine.
It's fine. Didn't the superior take him out for once in a while?
Something like that.
They were...
Well, because the superior was another woman.
It was. I don't think she took him out, but she definitely did not.
She was just like, oh, whatever's going to keep them
Well, didn't she use the boys will be boys type thing?
Yeah, basically kind of like, oh, you know, that's just how they are.
Which is never an excuse.
Never an excuse, or else I'll beat your ass.
That blows me away. Like, on a real subject.
Yeah.
You know, growing up in Utah or whatever, like, we can all attest that we probably know someone or have been involved with, like, going to school and getting told that our clothes were too revealing.
Yeah.
Or inappropriate, for example. Because, like, I was a dumb kid and I used to shop at Gen X. Right? And Gen X had some, like, you know, some graphic t-shirts.
Yeah.
So, and I get that, like, but, like, you know, I remember when I was in high school, like, girls couldn't wear anything that showed shoulders, or if your fingertips...
Yeah, it had to be past your fingertips when you stood up.
And, like, the whole excuse was, like, you don't want to distract the boys. Distract them from what?
Boys. Yeah.
The boys are going to get distracted even if you're wearing literally head to toe covered.
Yeah, you can wear anything and the boys can be like, she's fucking hot.
Hey, whoa, is that a girl?
Whoa, did I see some lumps?
Yeah. What are those?
Whoa there, those curves.
Her shoes,
hors d'oeuvres.
I've never heard that one before.
We were watching this YouTube video where it's like this like sex worker, or it was a dominatrix tries to like guess people's kinks and all that stuff, and this guy was like, she'll like ask him questions and all that stuff just to try to like figure it out, and this guy was like, oh, I love curves. The curves are the hors d'oeuvres.
Oh my god, what a hero.
Honestly, and so I was like, I've been using that ever since.
Wow.
Curves are hors d'oeuvres.
So good.
But I have to agree, especially when I was in the Mormon church and everything, when I was younger. I remember when I was like 13 and I went to this church meeting, and this is actually one of the last times that like I went on my own, because I would take my siblings because my parents were working all the time, and so I would take them, but it was laundry day, and so I didn't have any like church clothes or anything, and so I just had kind of like, it was like this ruffly skirt or something, but it was a little shorter. That's definitely a fact, but it also, I was like 13, so it was like, whatever, I gotta take him to church. There we go. I go in and I get pulled aside in the middle of class by like the older lady leaders, and like also like the older men leaders were there to like do a lesson or something. They took me aside and they're like, you need to go home and change because it's really distracting for the older leaders that are here. And I'm like,
I'm 13
I'm 13, literally. I was like, what?
See,
okay.
What? There was a comedian that did like a stand-up on that was like, talking about like letting kids dress up a certain way, and he's like, who fucking cares? I'm an adult. I know that kid's not fucking Batman. Let him dress up as Batman.
Yeah.
And then he's like, so what? This little girl wants to wear a bikini. I'm a man. She's a child. I am not attracted to it. Why not let her wear what she wants? Because you're worried about grown men being attracted, and that's why she needs to cover up. We need to be more focused on the men that are actually finding her attractive.
Yeah.
Well, he's like, I don't remember what comedian it was or like how he phrased it, but he was just like, because they were like, someone was like bashing on like a celebrity because their daughter was wearing like
a bikini or something.
Like a bikini or like I think it was like they were dressed up as like, Selena, where she had like the tube top and like the flowy pants.
Oh, but that'd be so cute.
Yeah, but he's like, it's a child. Let the child wear whatever they want to wear because it's a child. And also, who the fuck cares? It's a child. I'm not sexually attracted to a child. It doesn't affect me. And also, too,
literally,
who cares? It's a child.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like people who like, basically, it's like people outing themselves as pedophiles when they like come out and they're like, I don't know, it's a little too much for you. And it's just kind of like, obviously, you were having some thoughts, and that's why you're uncomfortable. I shouldn't be making you uncomfortable, and like, you need to get that figured out. That shouldn't be my problem.
Yeah.
You know? I remember in high school, it was actually the last day of my senior year, but then I was like older and stuff like that, but I had this tattoo that Allie gave me. It's like this stick and poke, like flower sort of thing, and I was wearing like this razorback shirt dress thing, and I was getting snacks from the vending machine to donate so that I could get rid of my U's so that I could graduate, as you do. And I remember one of the like officers of the school literally came up to me and they're like, you're gonna need to go and get a sweater. It was the middle of summer. Like, it was basically like, it was so hot because it was the last day of school.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not gonna go and get a sweater. He's like, well, I mean, your tattoo is showing, and like your shoulders and stuff like that. And I'm like,
what you gonna do about it?
Yeah, I'm like, good for you. I was just leaving.
Yeah.
But also, like, I had a tattoo on my leg. Ryan had a tattoo on his arm. Tommy started a half sleeve in the middle of senior year. Who the fuck cares if his tattoo's showing? We should be more worried about the parents that let us get it before. That was my dad.
I didn't ask anybody. I just was like, hey, Allie, I got some ink and a needle. And she was like, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well,
then she pussied out.
I pussied out. I hardcore pussied out.
Yeah.
And then I fixed it up a little bit.
Yeah,
because I did my own. That's why my dad let me get this one, because he was like, he was like, I'll do you a favor and let you get one early. I was like, I already have one. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, yeah, I did it myself. And he's like, you fucking idiot.
You idiot.
I love it, though. I think it's adorable. I forget that it's there because it's on my hip.
Yeah, yeah.
But, like,
and you're like, oh, hey.
That's what I hate about, like, people, like, making girls have to dress a certain way to protect them from boys. But it's like, why don't the boys get their shit together instead of attacking the girls?
Yeah,
Because it's like...
Like, that shouldn't be our problem. We can do whatever the fuck we want to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
So someone, I don't know how to pronounce her name, XX420360, said Big Phillip be the bottom of the shelf. Well, your girlfriend looked like my mom, so.
Well, your girlfriend looked like my mom.
Not sure what this is all about. It's a book club.
We're talking about Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk.
Yep.
He wrote. Either it's a bunch of chicks. Yeah, it means it's a good time.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Fun fact, we learned today bears are attracted to menstrual blood.
Yeah, actually.
Fun facts.
Fun facts
You
for
are
y'all.
safe from the grizzlies.
No, the tattoo thing is crazy too, because it's 2020.
Yeah.
Literally.
Literally.
2020.
Yeah.
I was telling my dad the other day, because, like, I went on a date with a guy whose brother is covered in head-to-toe tattoos, and I was showing my coworker the guy I was going on a date with, and I was like, he's like, oh yeah, like, the brother's much cuter, and I was like, debatable, I like them both.
Debatable. They both got a lot of tattoos, and it's hot.
That's all that matters.
Facts.
But I was telling my dad, I was like, because, like, I could tell, like, my coworker definitely like has a daughter my age, where
Yeah.
he's like he would not let his daughter, like would not be okay with his daughter having like a boyfriend with hand tattoos or face tattoos. And I was like telling my dad, I was like, I think that's dumb because it's like if I dated a guy or married a guy that had face or hand tattoos, I could give less of a fuck because I know I'm going to be so financially stable myself to raise my own kids, and then if he can at least provide for himself, then it would be a good work. And my dad was like, and I was like, I could tell you did not like that.
I could tell you did not like that.
Well, I know that there's still companies that will discriminate from tattoos, but at the same time, we're getting to a point where I think they're really not anymore. Like, a lot of big corporations are being forced to shift their mindset and be like, fuck, some of our best workers are getting all these tattoos. What do we do?
Yeah.
Oh, they're just fucking tattoos.
Yeah,
like,
literally. It doesn't change anything.
Well, we can't, people aren't allowed to express themselves in a way with tattoos?
Yeah, really. Well, like, that's the crazy part about it, because my coworker, I didn't know this about her, but, like, because, like, I've never seen a picture of her boyfriend, but he apparently makes fat stacks, like, he's, like, what is it? When you, like, solder? Like, computer parts?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, he does, like, a lot of, like, computer fixing. Like, he, like, has a great job.
Yeah.
And, like, makes lots of money. And he was, like, she was, like, explaining him to me. Like, apparently he's, like, bald, head tattoos, has a whole sleeve of Nightmare Before Christmas, and his hand turns into Jack Skellington's hand.
Hell yeah.
And so, like, he's, like, covered in tattoos. And, like, I just didn't associate that because most people you think with, like, hand tattoos aren't able to get, like, good jobs like that.
Because that's what you've been told.
But because you're, like, that's what I've been told my whole life. Like, hey, like that. My dad, when I got this one, furious. That made a horrible birthday. That was an awkward birthday. But like my dad was like, I just didn't want you to get arm tattoos because I didn't want you to have to like worry about that for jobs. And I'm like, but I'm more comfortable with tattoos on my body than anything else. Like I like having them, but it's just like.
Well, on the flip side of things, I probably wouldn't want to work for a business that cares.
Yeah, exactly. If they're just kind of like, sorry, you can't have tattoos, and it's like, obviously your clients are judgmental.
I'll give a perfect example. I'm not going to use names or company names, but there was somewhere that I worked, and I was in a position of hiring people, and I ended up hiring my buddy. Great person. Shout out. You know who you are.
Shouts out, buddy.
He tattoos, big, bearded, intimidating looking, had some hand tats.
The best kind of people.
Sweetheart.
Yeah.
The most sweetheart people, honestly.
Yeah.
The owner came in one day, met him, was super nice to him. And then we had a discussion later about, why did you hire someone who's going to be up front that has hand tattoos? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, have you seen how he interacts with customers? He's bringing customers back.
Yeah, he's
like he has a fun ass time with customers.
Literally,
and they all love him.
Like if you're like good at your job and stuff like that, like what does it matter?
Then like 2 months down the road, there was enough compliments from like online surveys of the bearded guy at the front desk was so nice that it was kind of like, what are you gonna say now?
Fire him
yeah,
right.
People are gonna get actually more butthurt because you're like, why would you get rid of the friendliest guy?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
yeah. What's up, XL? And then Space is I'm a business professional and I'm covered in tattoos. Yeah, I mean exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Facts.
Body isn't your resume.
I don't think I've ever had anyone turn me away because of a tattoo, because I have one right here. But I also, there's only one company, no, there are two companies that I've ever worked in my, I think I've worked 8 different companies. There are only 2 companies that were like, hey, your tattoos are fine. Everyone else was like, cover it up. It's fine that you have it. We just can't let anyone know that you have it. Which I think is so silly.
Yeah.
It's so silly. But, that's how I was with Granite Office, or I mean, my place of work. That is, doesn't matter. That's how I felt with them, because they don't care at all.
Yeah.
But it's funny, because when I started there, I never showed them until we had, an event where I was wearing a jacket, cover all my tattoos, and I was like, it's so hot. And I took them off, and everyone was just like, what? And they're like, oh, we didn't realize you had that many tattoos. And I was like, I didn't realize I had to express that I had tattoos.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay. And then show them off. And
oh yeah, that's what. So when I was like, because we were trying to get jobs at the same time and everything, and we were like, I was going to all these interviews and stuff, and I'd wear long sleeves because I have like kind of like big tattoos like right here and like on the back of my arms and stuff like that, and I'd always wear long sleeves, and then I got this job that I have now, and I went a couple times, and then eventually I was like, oh yeah, I was gonna ask, what's like the like dress code sort of thing going on, because I was like so nervous that they were gonna be like, oh, make sure to cover your tattoos, even though I don't work with like customers in person because I'm like an assistant at like this warehouse building, and so the only people I see are like the FedEx people, if anything. And I was like, just so you know, I have a couple tattoos, and they're like, okay.
They're like, yeah.
They're like, sounds good. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. That's always the funniest response, because there was someone who's working where I worked, and he asked me that. He's like, will they get mad if I get tattoos? I'm like, have you opened your eyes and walked around this place? You see how many people have tattoos? They don't give a fuck.
They do not care.
Like, get a head tattoo. They don't care.
Oh,
they'd probably like it. They'd probably talk to you. Like our warehouse dude was like the main dude was talking to some kid the other day at like one of our little parties because he's getting his tongue split, and they were just casually talking about that. Like they don't give a shit. Like
they don't care.
I really don't think normal people give a shit.
No, honestly, that's like the whole thing. Is like when I was there, I was like, I have tattoos. Is that okay? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like a lot of people have tattoos and stuff, but they have it like more on like their backs or like their arms. They're like the only time we cover it up is when like techs will go to like they work with BYU and stuff like that. They're like, when we go to BYU, just because.
You want to keep your business.
Yeah.
You'll get a strong worded email.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're like, that's the only time that anybody would cover up. But even then, like, if the people from there come to our office, like, we don't care. Because they're in our place.
I could just imagine someone at that school, like a Bill or a Karen, sitting down. We do not appreciate you sending these heathens down to our campus.
Heathens with tattoos of the devil. I'm getting a new tattoo that's going to be, like, up here. And it's of Black Phillip from The Witch, which is technically like Baphomet, you know? Technically, that's pretty much what he is. Yeah.
I like it though.
Yeah, and I'm going to be like getting that, and then like I'll think about it and be like, I forget them. My parents are real religious. They're going to see that and be like, interesting.
Just tell them that you're real big fans of you're an animal lover.
Yeah, I'm an animal lover. Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole reason I'm getting it is because, like, that's one of my favorite movies. Yeah. And all that stuff. And I'm like, and I just, like, I absolutely love it. And I'm like, and also it looks dope as shit. True. So, obviously.
420 Sniper said, I just finished my first book.
Fuck off.
It's about a young lady who was madly in love with an architect. Yeah, she fell for his high-rise. Like that.
It was a good joke.
High rise.
I liked The Witch.
Great movie. Thank you.
I was so bored.
It's a slow burn.
It's a slow burn, and I get it's unsettling, and the cinematography is amazing. It's boring as shit. Oh. I'm gonna say it.
I liked it the second time more.
Yeah. Maybe you just gotta watch it
You see what's going on more. Because I definitely understood what you're saying. Like, the first time I watched it, because I was hyped up about it, because I watched it like 2 or 3 months after it was out, and everyone was talking about it. Okay, so I watched it, I'm like, okay, the baby salsa was crazy.
that baby jam.
and the ending of it was crazy, but the rest of it, I was like, oh, that's really slow. But then watching it a second time, like, you start to see everything building up. Yeah. And you're like, okay.
That's like with the same director did The Lighthouse.
Yeah,
if
you ever haven't seen that. I want to.
We watched it, and we need to watch it a second time. Okay. Yeah, we need to watch it a second time just because it was literally... I can tell you're Snapchatting someone.
I know you can.
Every time she has a specific Snapchat face.
I do, because it's a good face. Solid.
It is a good face. Any face of yours is a good face, baby girl.
When a guy asks me for my Snap, I'm just like, I hate you. I only talk to one guy on Snap now because I actually like he's cute, so I'm like, it's worth it. But every guy's like, can I get your Snap? And I was like, how about no?
How about you suck dick?
I was like, I'd rather not have to talk to you with my face.
Yeah, they ask you for your Snap, just send them a PayPal.
This is Morgan from Facebook, by the way.
Oh, what's up?
What's up, Morgan from Facebook?
Welcome.
What's poppin'? Welcome.
Welcome.
Well, should we get back to the book?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a... real moment right there.
I like that segue. Okay, so we talked about the police lady.
Yeah, the police lady.
Or the social worker, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She works for the police. But anyways.
Yeah. Maybe what we can do to make this easier, why don't we go through all the backstory, or all the backstories, and then we'll explain the main story, so that way we know who we're talking about.
Yeah, Allie, take us away.
Right, take us away with your list.
Let me get to it.
Let me just, in the meantime.
Why?
Why?
Not gonna lie, the favorite part of, like, me coming out with having tattoos at my work was the gentleman that also, like, got hired, like, a couple weeks prior.
Yeah.
Was, he's Polynesian, so he has, like, a full sleeve, but when he was hired as a salesman, he, like, came in button-ups, and then they realized he's like, oh, I'm in-house, I don't have to dress up every day, and so he came in with, like his whole sleeve out, and everyone's just like, what?
Whoa.
What's that dude from Pulp Fiction where he has his coat and he's like looking around confused, like
he's like
Travolta.
Yeah.
I love John Travolta. Anyways, so
is John Travolta
okay? So
he's looking so hot now.
Hear me out. Can we talk?
He's hot now.
Because my favorite story is actually all of the stories that Tess Clark writes.
Facts.
And I know it's not one of the, like, victims, but her fucking story, she goes so quick from, like, okay, you're kind of with this guy, to, oh my god, I'm so sorry, to, oh my god, fuck you. Like, So, Tess Clark. We can also talk about Whittier.
Yeah.
And his fucking stories.
I'd say Whittier, one of his last story is probably my favorite. I think. Other than, like, I love Tess Clark's stories, but then, like, the last Mr. Whittier story that he wrote, where it's just kind of like, is this real life? But it's not. It's just kind of like this made up shit, and it's great. Basically. Continue.
But, so, Tess Clark starts with a short story of her and her boyfriend, maybe husband at the time. They want to get rich. So they do, like, okay, let's become porn stars. So she gets the fake boobs, and then they have sex for, like, 4 days straight, film everything, and at the end of it, they can't even look at each other anymore. They're just, like, so disgusted with themselves and each other. They're like, oh, I've seen you. Especially after they watch the video, they're like,
edit it.
This is gross. We are not attractive. This is not attractive. I'm not attracted to you anymore. And he leaves, and she finds out she's pregnant. And then her second story is called The Nightmare Box. And to this day, I would look in the Nightmare Box just because I want to know what's in it.
We asked, I think me and...
Yeah, well, you guys were... I think
you were on a call and you went to the bathroom. I think we asked, what do you think was in the Nightmare Box?
Yeah, what is your theory
and
of what is in it?
There was a couple people who commented. One person said nothing, and it's the anticipation that, like, killed it.
Like, fucks you up.
I don't know. I think for me, if I were to look into a Nightmare Box, it would just be, like, a reflection of my life.
That's what I was going
to think. That would be, I would look at it and be like, oh, I really haven't done anything to get to that point. And that would probably make me, like, really give me the motivation to change everything. I don't know, though.
Yeah. I was thinking it was going to be like a mirror or something like that, that literally you're like hyping yourself up for like this terrible thing that's going to be in there. That's a nightmare box, and literally you just look at it, it's just like a mirror, and you're just like, fuck you.
I don't know, though, because I feel like... Don't get me wrong, I'm so happy. Okay, a little backstory. So, Tess and her daughter, who's now around 16, I think... They go to this art gallery, and there's this nightmare box, which is, it has a lot of history, and no one knows what's inside it, but every time it stops clicking, you can look in it for a second with your left eye. And whatever it shows you something, and no one's ever talked about it. And then it starts ticking again, and there's no, like, when it stops ticking is completely random. So you can't predict it. You can't really plan for it.
It just happens.
It just happens. And then her daughter looks in the box, and, like, her daughter's all dolled up in a very, like, stereotypical 16-year-old, I'm hot and I know it.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking at me kind of way. And then it stops ticking, and the art director is like, hey, come on, I pick you. Look in the box. And she's like, okay. She looks in the box, and then she immediately just, like, goes back, takes off her shoes, takes off her earrings, and is like, we're leaving. And then she disappears. They, like, go home. She's there for a couple days. She doesn't talk, and then she disappears. But I don't think I want to know what's in the nightmare box until I could see it. Because I feel like whatever I think is better or worse than what's in the nightmare box, and I wouldn't want to know until I look.
I really sat because that was probably my favorite part of the book, because I just was like, this is so unusual, but at the same time I could see something like this existing, like having it be something like some crazy art show.
Yeah.
But I sat there and tried to think about like what the dude who owns it represents. And I was trying to wonder, like, maybe he represents like capitalism in a way, and his idea is like, I'm going to sell you this product and you're going to take it regardless because of the anticipation and how everything's set up. Or is he like, I don't even know how to word it. I don't want to say the devil, but he is sin. And if you look in the nightmare box, you fall into the trap of sin, which in reality, if we look at what sinning is, it's more pure than what we don't do in a way. Because like I've tried to look online to see what everyone's different theories were, and there were so many of like what the nightmare box might be.
Oh, thanks for the follow. Whoop whoop.
I think for me, if I were to look into it, and the thing that would change me the most would be like a reflection.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, fuck you.
I feel like it would be different for every single person, because what it would affect somebody in the same way would have to be a different thing, because everybody gets affected differently. But I mean, if it wants kind of like a similar result, I really liked how you said kind of like, it's kind of like, you know, putting you into like sin or whatever. Yeah. And like sin is more pure than what you don't do. Because then I feel like that relates to the story that I really like by Mr. Whittier, where it's kind of like they have their whole, which I thought was, I'm a real big sci-fi fan just in general. And so this whole like kind of theory was really cool to me, where it was like everybody who dies, actually, they like found out, like in this story, astronauts go to Venus, and they find out that everybody who dies goes to Venus as like their heaven, and they don't age, and they just get to party all the time, and it's just like this amazing planet of like booze and sex and drugs, and like nothing is wrong, and like everybody's just having a great time. And that Earth is just kind of like, what did they call it? It's like a tumble mill or something, like to smooth out the edges and stuff like that before you can go to Venus. And so then once they come back with like, they had like video footage and all this stuff of like, you know, famous people who have already died and all this stuff, just like partying it up over on Venus. And eventually everybody sees it, and the government is like, well, I mean, the thing is if like all your edges aren't smooth, you get reincarnated on Earth, and you just it keeps happening until all your edges are smoothed and everything. But they're like, but if everybody is dead, then nobody can be reincarnated here on Earth, and we all go to Venus. Right. And so they like create kind of this, like they call it immigration, where everybody just starts killing themselves, and they have like immigration packages like just at the store with like cyanide pills, and then they have like the people who will just be like in white coats and have like white guns and just go and like shoot up a place just to like make sure that everybody dies. But the whole thing is that at the very end you find out that this girl, she ends up leaving her family from like, they're all sitting in a car together killing themselves with the carbon monoxide poisoning. She gets out, turns out she's pregnant, and she's like, I don't really want to die, I want to keep living, and like now, especially since I have this life in me and everything, like like I want to keep living. And kind of proving the point of like, obviously you can't force yourself to smooth your edges and everything, and that you actually do have to experience all of like the sin and whatnot. to fully get to this, like, Venus.
Well, on top of the fact that everyone was partying on Venus, and everyone was like, oh my God, that's what we want. And in reality, we could just have that if you just want to live that lifestyle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But people are so afraid to live that lifestyle because of the ramifications that you'll have, like, publicly or reputation or, you know, financially.
Yeah, exactly.
Some. Wild.
Right.
Also,
we love you. Sorry.
Going back to the nightmare box.
Yes.
Because that's one of my favorite stories. The fact that Tess goes back and the guy has looked in it and it stops ticking and then she doesn't look. Like, she's too afraid to look. Yeah. I think is so powerful, and it shows her character so well in, like, and there are a lot of people out here who would be like, nope, I'm good.
No.
Like, I'm happy not knowing ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what that whole entire point of that is like, if you really are ignorant to a lot of problems, life is a lot better.
Yeah.
I.e. people around Utah.
Yeah.
They seem really happy because they're ignorant to a lot of the realities.
Yeah. Because they're just in their little bubble that's, like, super... Which brings me... So I had, like, this class, you know, and this is actually, like, I don't ever talk in classes ever, except for, like, this semester that I was just in. I actually talked a lot in this class because it was so interesting. It was, like, a whole discussion-based class, and that was a big theme of everything because we read Frankenstein, and we would kind of, like, psychoanalyze it and stuff like that, just because... we like to think that, like, is ignorance really bliss? Because of the whole thing where, like, you know, Dr. Frankenstein is like, I don't want anybody to know how I made this person because they could create, like, a whole new race and all this stuff and completely destroy us. But also, I've created this whole new thing of science that, like, I kind of want to show the world, but also I don't. And it's kind of like, well, I mean, would people use it for, like, the wrong things or the right things? And is not knowing really better than actually knowing? And that was just always a common thing because then it also relates to just, like, literally everything in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, let's go visit Michael Myers' house.
Down.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, for sure.
Send
I'll go.
Yeah, drop that Addy. We'll be there.
No, I think ignorance is bliss, though, honestly. Because, like, even if we look at... I don't want to get on too much topics about what 2020's like, but if you step back and don't get involved, your 2020 probably isn't that wild right now.
Yeah.
You're probably like, wow, this is great. This is such a great 2020.
If you just, like my coworker, she deleted her Facebook because she just didn't want to see it anymore, and I'm like, she's probably, like, not mentally or, like, emotionally fucked up because, like, I go on social media every day and I just get angrier and angrier. Doesn't mean I'm not going to look at it because, like, I need to know what's happening so then I can get angry, and then as a white woman I can hopefully try to change something because, you know, I'm white. But, like that going back to ignorance is bliss, she just deleted her Facebook. She's like, it's too political, I don't want to get involved. She's like I supported it, I just don't want to hear about it. But it's like, that's almost, like, kind of worse in my opinion, because it's like you're purposely choosing to not listen. But, like, she's like, I support it. I support the movement. She's like, I'm not racist. I think that it is an issue. She's like, I don't want to see it every day. And I'm like, it must be nice.
Right?
Okay. I'm going to put a controversial opinion out that I know people will get mad about. Especially, like, if I posted this on my Facebook, I would get so much hate. But the people who didn't vote, not because they couldn't, or, like, there were laws in place, or the intense voting thing, that I get 100%. That's fine. Yeah. But the people who could have voted, but didn't, that's fucked up. That's so fucked up. Because, hey, you have a voice. Might as well use it. Like...
That brings me makes me think of American Horror Story Cult when she's getting mad. God, she's like, "You voted for what was the third guy? Not Hillary or Clinton?
She voted
Trump.
For Warren.
Not Warren.
Or was it?
Not Elizabeth.
Oh
Warren
wait, I was thinking
this was like some third party and like some people voted for.
Yeah.
It was a guy.
No, I thought it was a girl because she voted for this other woman who was like not going to win. That people did like the third party vote where they just kind of wanted.
She's like, you voted for them. Why don't you just not vote, you asshole? It's like that's what it makes me think of is like these people who are getting so angry that don't vote. Because like the biggest thing, like my dad told me, he's like, why are you going to a protest? And I was like, because I want to go protest. And he's like, that's fine, but like. Like the biggest thing you can do is vote. And I'm like, Dad, I vote. I vote 2016. I will vote this year. I voted for mayors and like everything in Utah. I still vote.
I hold an opinion. If you don't vote, don't talk about the subject. Yeah, you're wasting your time because you're not doing anything to help. Mm-hmm. But I also, on the flip side of that, I think that going to vote just to vote isn't good. I think that people need to do their research because if you just show up and you're like, well, I know who Trump is, or I know who Elizabeth Warren is, or I know who Huntsman is, like
Gary Johnson.
Instead of knowing,
so it was a man.
Actually picking what you want, I think that is just as harmful.
Yeah.
But it's probably better to still go and at least put your vote out there.
Yeah. I mean. No, honestly, one thing I realized that
Wait, hold on, sorry, not to cut you off. Why would that be controversial?
Have you guys not seen, there is, at least on my feed, and maybe it's because I'm, all of my high school acquaintances. I don't even call them friends. I won't even call them classmates. They're acquaintances.
Oh, I'm good. Thank you, though.
I'm still sipping
on a little top off. They post memes all the time, or not memes, just statuses that are like, hey, not voting is okay. You shouldn't shame people. And I'm like, bullshit.
Fuck you.
But I see so many of those, especially when into 2016.
I see where yours might be. Mine's more like, I don't have a lot of people on Facebook or Twitter, so anything I post or tweet doesn't get any.
I definitely don't think shaming is the way to go, but telling people hey, well, just go do a little research and put your vote out there. Regardless of where you fall, you're still helping the cause. Yeah. Because the country needs to know the true majority.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And not just the people who are involved in politics.
Exactly.
Because I don't like politics at all. I don't follow any of it. I don't consider myself a certain party or a certain person. I pick based off of what I believe. Mm-hmm. And I'll still vote. I voted in 2016. I'll vote in 20 whatever. I'm still going to. I'll still do the research, but I don't follow politics because it's
just kind
gross.
Of
well, it's hard too in Utah because you can vote, but most of the time your vote doesn't matter. Yeah. But still gotta vote.
Yeah. Still gotta vote.
But if all of us who think it doesn't matter voted, maybe it would.
See, that's where that's where that disconnect comes. Is people don't realize that they're one little voice does make a difference. Mm-hmm. It's so silly, but that one little voice.
Right.
Tis I, little apocalypse in the world. Apocalypses in the world. Facts, because it's not a full apocalypse. It's just little baby apocalypses until it all just kind of combines into one big
Did you see that conspiracy theorists said that we read the Mayan calendar wrong?
I was literally
We're dying in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Dunzo.
We're out of here.
I see a lot of them and it's mostly joking, but I see a lot of memes of old Mayans being shit, I wrote 2012 instead of 2021. Yeah. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Oh, that one's a good one. When I read that, I was like, God damn it. Cause they're memes, so they're not real, but you're what if it's true?
But what if?
But it feels so real.
I mean, honestly.
When a meme hits too hard where you're
fuck.
That kind of hurty.
that kind of hurt.
I felt bad.
My favorite meme is still the one that's keep your head up, queen, your Crunchwrap Supreme's getting cold. I said that to a guy, and he's like, do you want to get Taco Bell? And I was like, Yeah. Pick a
day.
My favorite thing is in high school. We would go to Taco Bell for lunch all the time, and you know they're like cinnamon balls.
Yeah.
We would call them cum balls. I feel like you want a bag of cum balls all the time. That we got that's all I think of when I think of Taco Bell. I'm like, oh yeah, are we gonna eat some cum balls?
Because when you bite into it, it's like
totally like jizz.
Yeah,
the texture,
much like jizz.
Unless I would say if jizz tasted like that, the world would be a happier place.
So much happier. I would be giving out so many more blowjobs.
Like,
that's what jizz tasted like.
I'd be giving that double gooseneck every weekend.
Double gooseneck, gat.
Oh no!
Only if it tasted like the cinnamon bun balls from, I don't even know what they're called anymore, like what their real name is, because I always call them cum balls.
Yeah, what is the name?
They're like this, anyways.
We don't know. Cum balls.
Cum balls.
Balls.
Nut balls.
Nut balls. Nut balls.
Except when they got like one that was really warm, and I was like, what is this nut been cooking for a while?
This nut's been cooking. So, question. If all of these little apocalypses went into the big apocalypse and the end of the world was in a week, what would you do?
Probably podcast more. I don't know.
Just live streaming.
I don't think I really have a backup of like. I think I would join the anarchy parties whenever they start going on and like.
Yeah,
fuck shit
I
up.
feel like if the world's ending in a week, I'ma loot the shit out of Utah.
Yeah, I feel like I would. Is it bad to say I would just probably fuck as many people as I can and then just go out in a bang, literally?
No, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a lot of people would.
I love my family. I want to spend my last week with them.
I don't want it to be sad. I want to be balls deep in whoever. Like,
yeah.
In all honesty.
Balls deep in a squealing hog.
Exactly. What would you do? You haven't answered.
Oh, I feel like this has already happened because I think our friend Sam also like tweeted this on Twitter, and I was like, down, dude. It was basically just kind of like, let's have a giant apocalypse orgy.
Yeah.
Just a giant orgy party, because then I can make the croquembouche.
Explain.
So there's this, one time I got a text from Bella, who is not here, but is usually on our podcast. She was like, if we have a sex party, can we make a croquembouche?
Do you know what a croquembouche is? It's a fancy dessert.
It's basically a tower of cream puffs. And then, like, swirled in caramel, and, like, usually there's, like, fun designs on it and stuff like that. And so she's like, can we make a croquembouche? And I was like, yeah, why not? So then I can make a giant croquembouche, and then everybody can be having sex around it.
They're very impressive.
They're fancy as shit.
Okay,
they're fun.
But hear me out. If the world was ending, can we light my apartment on fire?
Yes!
We can do anything we want.
Yeah.
What does it matter? We're all gonna die in a week.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I need y'all's help with it because I only have so much fuel and so much time.
We'll go just rob a whole gas station, first off.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, I'll even siphon the own gas out of my own car.
I have a credit card that has a way too big of a balance. Why don't we just use the whole credit card, buy a bunch of gas?
Yeah, max that shit out.
If we're gonna be dead in a week, who cares about finances?
Exactly.
Who wants to buy plane tickets, go to the Vatican?
Oh, I do kind of want to go somewhere.
Yeah.
We could have the giant end of the world orgy at the Vatican.
Ooh.
You hear me? And then burn it down to the ground at the end.
My only concern with that,
my
only concern with that is there's probably a lot of kids at the Vatican already who have to do that. I don't.
Oh,
no! What are you talking about? We all know it's only little boys.
Shout out
Vatican. My dad.
You guys are not doing right.
My dad asked me actually if I wanted to go and spend. I mean, like the thing is like it wasn't official yet, and he was like, if this actually happens, do you want, because he does, I've talked about my dad on here before, and he's like, you know, he's a wild bitch.
Yeah.
He was like, do you want to go and spend 3 months at the Vatican?
Yeah, for sure.
And just be researching all of this old art and stuff like that, because they were like kind of art, I don't know what the proper word is, but they would find this like, basically, there's a lot of art around in Europe that people will have in their basements that are actually worth millions of dollars, but they have no idea because there's no record of them and they don't have any papers. But the Vatican has records of literally everything.
Right.
And so my dad is like, oh yeah, no, we found records for like this one thing that we ended up selling because we like, so I don't know if I should say it on here. I'll say it. The Madonna, which was in our house, the first mold of Madonna.
And what do you mean?
By Da Vinci.
Wait. Why do you have it?
We don't have it anymore. It's
why
sold.
Did you have it?
Because we basically, somebody had, like, because it was like the first casting, so it wasn't like the original, but it was the first casting of the Madonna by, or was it Da Vinci? I don't know. Whoever it was. But it's like the whole like gold like thing where she's like, it's like her and she's like holding a baby and stuff like that. We had that. And we ended up selling it because the thing is like there wasn't any like papers of, like on it or anything.
Okay.
But in the Vatican, they actually had it because it was gifted to the Pope like forever ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it ended up coming into the hands of someone else and then blah 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 and it like goes
I
to a bunch
have more
of people.
questions. Are we allowed to talk about how and why you have it? Like that's not just something you like wake up and like, oh, did you go up in the attic today and look? We have that.
Actually, it was basically like my dad called me up and was like, do you have your fancy camera? And I was like, why? And he's like, oh, I need to take pictures of some art piece. And I was like, okay, cool. And I come over and he's like, 1 second. And he like pulls out this thing with a sheet and he like unfolds it. And I'm like, is that what I think it is? And he was like, yeah.
I want to hang out with your dad so bad.
He's dope. He's dope as shit.
I feel like your dad would do so well on his, like, doing his own, like, podcast. Because he has so many stories.
But he's also, the thing is he's off the grid. Specifically, he has no social media whatsoever. And specifically, well, I mean, he has social media, but just to, like, check up on people and stuff like that. But it's, like, fake social media. So he's completely off the grid, just in general, with that sort of stuff. And he's there's a lot of things that I could say that I'm like, I don't know if I should say it on live, though.
Did you guys get a lot of the De Niro's?
You got a lot of De Niro. Yeah. Whenever he sells stuff like that, one thing that I really like is that sometimes he'll, like, because what he uses the money for, like, other ventures and stuff like that, because he's, like, basically a serial startup business type of guy. He likes to, like, invest in startups and then sell them off because he's like, I don't want to run a business. That sounds awful. I just like to invest in it and make some money off of it and start a new thing.
I dream of being your dad in, like, 10 years. What the fuck is going on?
He's fucking awesome.
And you also said that when he does stuff like this, so has there been other things where he's just like, oh yeah, I got this piece of priceless art?
He was in Croatia, like, a few months ago, and he, like, was going, it didn't actually happen, so I think I can say it. It didn't actually happen, but he was going to, like, go across the Baltic with some, like, Croatian gangster, basically. But
your dad lives definitely 2 lives, right? Like 110%.
Oh yeah. He's honestly the thing is he's always like trying to be modest, and he's like, nah, like, I ain't that cool. I know a lot of really cool people. He's like the most interesting person in the world. I know this guy. And I'm like, no, Dad, you're the most interesting person that I know.
He is the DeSantis guy or whatever drink that is.
No, literally, that's him. That's like, he knows this. Oh, actually, no, I can't say that here because that's a current thing going on. I'll tell you guys later, though.
Okay.
But anyways, my dad's really cool.
And it's so funny to hear the stories and then meet her dad.
Because every time I meet her dad, like every time I see Cass's dad, he's like, "You're not gonna give me a hug?" And I was like, "I'm kind of terrified of you."
You're a little scary, but
because he's like a second father, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a picture so I can see
of my dad?
Yeah. I gotta put a face to the legend
I
now.
knew your dad before I knew any of this. Yeah. So I still call him old and fat when I see him. Like, he's just this funny guy. He sometimes snow blows our driveway. Like, he's just the funny, nice neighbor.
And then he's rolling with some gangsters on the weekend.
Yeah. He has a billy club that was gifted to him by the Rascals, the gang in Utah. That they were like, I don't know how he got it. I don't know, but they gifted it to him. And they're like, here you go. And literally, it looks so badass. In it, it says time's up, burnt into it.
What the?
Yeah, and he has it, and he's like, I haven't used it, but I mean, like, how badass is that? And I'm like, that's pretty badass, Dad.
Does he say he hasn't used it just to be like, yeah, we're family?
Well, what he does is he says, we actually recently talked about this quote from War Dogs, which has to do with the thing that I will tell you guys after.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
But basically he was like, I'm not a bad guy, but sometimes you gotta think of what would a bad guy do.
Can we write a movie? Just on his life?
He literally, it would be the most interesting movie ever.
What the hell?
Right? He's fucking
so
insane.
Because you said some stuff, and I'm like, that's pretty crazy. Like, cybersecurity stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, like he's doing some cool shit. Yeah. You just took it to like to the second level of like, oh yeah, we got Da Vinci art and billy clubs, and he's rolling with some real gangsters.
Oh, real gangsters. His name is Darko.
Wait, is that for real?
No, genuinely, that's his actual, like, that's the gangster's name.
I thought they called your dad
Donnie Darko. No, this other guy's name is like, he's intense
I was gonna be like, I love Donnie Darko.
You're like, whoa.
Cool classic.
I'm trying to find a picture of him. But, yeah, he's probably the most interesting person I know.
What time do you have your next one?
I was just about to see.
Because we got to talk about it.
The thing is, it's like, when I pull up pictures of him, I'm like, he doesn't look like he does all this stuff.
That's the thing that's so crazy about your
He's
dad.
He's like a total teddy bear. That's my dad.
Like,
it's so funny.
So funny. Well, the thing that's like crazy too is that also I know you guys do the Frankenstein, and I know he gets so hyped about it.
Oh, he's lit about it.
He's like, you want a cold stein? They're frozen.
And you can put some root beer in it.
And that's your dad. Then he like hangs out with fucking mafia members.
Yeah, you know, he vibes. Also, I like the thing is like he does all this stuff. And, like, I know that, like, you know, some of it could be, like, you know, a little sketch. But then he's also, like, what he does in his free time is he goes and just helps people in the life. Like, people who are, like, drug addicts and, like, prostitutes and all that stuff, like, here in Salt Lake. He helps them with, like, certain cases that, like, if they're, like, basically, like, being abused or something like that. Or if they're just, like, you know, drug addicts trying to turn their life around, he'll, like, help them detox and put them in rehab and everything. And that's just what he does for fun. That's just, like, his thing. That he's just kind of like, yeah, why not? Okay, sounds good. And...
Does he need an apprentice?
Yeah, I was gonna say, does your dad, like, have a job opening?
I'll take a bullet for him. He might need a new
assistant, actually, because I think she might be in jail. But not for the reason that she was one of the drug addicts that he was helping out.
Listen, no cap, as everyone says it.
No cap!
Tell your dad I'll take a bullet for him if I can get involved.
You know what? I will let him know. He thinks it's so fun. I'm like, oh, my friends love you. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, because you want to hear stories about my dad? We played catch.
we played catch.
We watched some football together. We've played some video games.
There we go.
He's not a mystery man.
Yeah. A lot of people think that he's a Russian spy, but he's not. I promise. He's not. But I mean, like, a lot of stuff that I had, like, I remember when I was, like, younger and stuff, like, when I was, like, younger, what I would do for my jobs is I would help him flip houses and stuff like that.
Is your dad got a lot of money that is just not talked about then, or...
He probably has, like, a lot of... But the thing is he uses all of the money, like, consistently to do new things.
That's crazy.
You know? And so it's never completely, like, a guaranteed money. It's always a gamble.
Because casually just be, we used to flip houses.
Yeah, casually. No. We used to flip houses and all that stuff, so I know how to do baseboards.
What is your dad's net worth?
Dude, I have no idea. I have no clue. I should ask him.
Would he do a podcast if there was no camera?
Maybe. You want me to text him right now?
Absolutely.
I can text him right now.
Absolutely.
He'd be so down. He'd probably be down. The thing is, you get him talking about this shit, and he will talk forever. He loves talking about it. It's his favorite thing.
Well, he could have any day of the week he needs.
He can have any day of the week.
Let him come over.
Please. Let me see. Dad. Anyways, back to the book. I'm sorry. I took a lot of time to talk about my dad.
Okay, but, like, that's fair.
He's an interesting feller.
He is.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the book. Let's go back to Tess Clark. Really quick. She's such a badass. She's also such a terrible human being. And I love it.
I love it.
So, she has the nightmare box where her daughter just, like, disappears. And then she has a story about her daughter, and then her daughter, like, just disappearing. No one found her. She was gone for 3 months. And then her daughter comes back. Out of the blue, like, she's been running up posters. She's been haggling with the police to be like, hey, find my daughter. And, like, she got all of her classmates to go on a hunt for her. I'm pretty sure they even had, like, a memorial for her. Mm-hmm. And then her daughter just shows up, missing a few toes and a finger. And her daughter is very, very different from the girl that she knew. From, like, the very materialistic, stereotypical, hot 16-year-old.
Right.
And so she comes back, and she dresses differently. She dresses more modestly and comfortably. She doesn't hang out with her friends anymore. She, like, she works really hard at school. She just spends all her time studying. And she's very, like, not overly emotional. She's just very content. And Tess Clark cannot handle it. And she just wants
her daughter back.
Who she wants her daughter to be.
Well, and even the fact that she wants her daughter to be a victim.
Yes.
And she refuses to be that. She is... Because didn't she even say, she's like, I did this to myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this wasn't someone, they didn't torture me, they didn't do all this stuff. Like, this was my own doing.
Good one, Salty. Sorry. One thing I think that is crazy in the story is when she, like, is going back to high school and she, like, doesn't have any teeth and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And, like, you know, all of her, like, you know, fingers and toes are missing and, like, she's completely, like, marred. And her mom is like, at least wear, like, the dentures that I got you. Yeah. And she's like, no. I don't care. And she's like, but don't you want to, like, go to prom or something and be, like, a normal 16-year-old? And she's like, do you think that I am a normal teen?
Well, I think, too, what it kind of represents is there's a lot of power in maturing to that level. Because that's kind of what happened, is she went through all this stuff, and it forced her to mature to a level that is beyond even just an average person. And I think that there's...
Beyond even her mom.
I think there's power in that. I think that there's... When you literally stop worrying about what beauty standards are, stop worrying about what people think of you, stop worrying about how I'm supposed to do this or what I'm supposed to do, and literally just do what you want to do, there's so much power in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's relieving. I'll admit that to this doing the podcast for the past 2-3 years is the first thing in my life that I did for me. And like everything else was like going to school, playing sports, you know, doing all that stuff. I did it because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And then when the podcast came around, I was like, no, this is what I want to do.
This is what you want to do.
And there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of, like, and not power as I mean, like, I'm more powerful than people who aren't. There's power in myself. Like, I feel strengthened by doing something that I want to do. And I think that's where she was at. I feel like she came back and she's like, I know what I want to do. This is how I want to be. Yeah. I'm not worried about appearances anymore.
And I have a friend who actually introduced me to this book, who went through a very different hardship, but it came out with a very similar ending. And I'm so happy she's happy, but she's a completely different person now.
Right.
So I kind of saw Tess Clark's reaction through that. That's why I like her so much, I feel. But also... That's also why I hate her so much, I feel, because of her reaction to that.
Right.
But also just seeing someone who truly, she cares about the world. She loves everyone. She also doesn't give a shit about, like, if you don't think she's pretty or nice enough or following society's rules. Or it's kind of like a loss of insecurity about all of that through finding yourself and, like, seeing your whole self, all of your flaws, everything you've done wrong, everything you've done right, everything you love about yourself, everything you hate about yourself, and just accepting it all. Mm-hmm. And then you, like, I feel like it's almost like a level up in life.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it's something to strive for. And, you know, ideally, in the perfect situation, it doesn't come through trauma. Because it's sad when you do have to take those steps because of trauma. Mm-hmm. But the ones who have the trauma and are able to step out of that, I think, are probably the most strongest people. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. And they're aware of what they want. But it's definitely, I can definitely see it being a level up for sure.
Yeah. Level up.
Level up. Level up. Yeah, no, I think that would be a level up in a sense of, like, because, you know, a lot of people, you see kind of like the parallel of kind of like people who go through like traumatic experiences and they're like, you know, better off in a way because it kind of like forces them to like mature and all that stuff, which really sucks and all. But once they like get to the point where they've kind of like, they've really processed it and they owned it, and it's changed them as a person. But then there's also where trauma affects the person in like such a negative way that it like basically turns back the clock and it makes them even more immature and more kind of like pushing all of the things out of like recognizing certain things about themselves, and like it causes sort of like just kind of like that cognitive dissonance.
Well, and I think too that all of us at the end of the day, we lay down in bed, I talk about this a lot, and you know, we ponder our thoughts and ponder who we are and ponder what we're doing, and you know, that's the time that you have to really be realistic. Yeah. Because, like, I feel like there's a lot of people who, I don't know how they can sleep. Because they're not really them. They're what society wants them to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that makes them more comfortable. And they're just like, yeah, I'll just be that normal. Or I'll follow the standard and just be okay with it. Yeah, yeah. Because I couldn't sleep if that was me. I'd feel weird. I'd be like, oh, am I sleeping or am I just, like, faking it, too?
Am I also faking the sleep? That's like when you like question, like you're like, am I real? Is this real? What's going on?
Ugh, it's the worst. When you're just like, am I who I am as a person, or can I change? Is it too late?
Well, can I
had a great podcast yesterday with someone by the name of Rhett Robertson.
Rhett Robertson.
His resume of stuff that he's involved in and does is pretty impressive. But you know, we were joking around about kind of like the simulation theory.
Oh yeah.
And that, to build up to it, we were talking about how important the small things every day are. Because you could have a really shitty day, right? But if you step back and look at the small things that are given to us in life, they can change your whole day. Whether that be a sunset or he even said, like, he saw, like, two squirrels, like, playing with each other, and he's like, it made him really happy. Yeah. And he called them the golden eggs or the Easter eggs of your day. Like, if there is a simulation theory, he's like, I think they put Easter eggs for us to have happy days. We just have to find them. Yeah. And I agree. Like, I think if you're having a shitty day, you could literally...
You just need to look for that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Find it. It's probably there.
Yeah, no, that totally, like, I mean, just recently, like, I specifically was having kind of, like, you know, a pretty, like, you know, bad time or whatever. And then Holly and I went to the grocery store, and we were literally just, like, getting groceries, and we realized that, like, we didn't even really need to get groceries. We're just kind of, like, we just wanted to get out of the house and, like, do something. And then we got, like, the unicorn and the dinosaur thing. And ever since, like, after that moment, the rest of the day, I was like, this is a great day. This is amazing.
I literally texted Cass, and I was like, is it really weird that I'm, like, super excited to go to the grocery store? All I needed was coffee. That's it. But I was like, I'm really excited to go grocery shopping. Really and then Cass was like, thank you so much for taking me. I was like, I needed this too.
We needed this. We see each other.
We see each other.
We see each other.
especially right now, it's just such a weird time, like with COVID and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's why I get why you said you should read this book while you're in quarantine, because it makes you feel like you're starting to become one of those characters.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes like your, like the things that you would write about, like your stories, like getting your guts taken out by a swimming pool, or having to protect doll children, or like your daughter coming back and not being the same person. They're like crazy things like that. It's just like, like you start to like kind of create these stories in your head. You're like, this is actually much worse than it was. And you're like, it really wasn't. I'm just like trying to like create a situation that makes me get out of the nothingness of the everyday. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you can really apply what's going on right now to this. The book is amazing. Read the book.
You know what I think would be, because like the thing is like, I'm not a good writer. I'm not. I have great ideas. My ideas are phenomenal, but I can't like write it down. But like, I think that it would be so fun if we all like made a short story, kind of like, but like no limits on like what it could possibly be, and then we all just have a short story and like we like, you know, tell it or like read it or something. And I feel like that would be really interesting, especially in like the current situation of just kind of like the world and kind of like quarantine and everything, because everybody's imaginations are completely different,
right?
You know, and so I feel like that'd be a really interesting thing, even though I don't know.
I love writing, so
I'm not good at writing, but I would love to do it. Just in the fact, because I think that would be super interesting.
Yeah.
I like writing a lot. Everything I write about, though, kind of turns into, like, poems in a way.
Yeah. Which would be, that would work. Yeah, awesome. Would be awesome.
Because, like, it basically started this one night in high school. It was still in high school. It was, like, January-ish, I think. Yeah. Anyways, I was at Cass's house. We were doing some fun stuff. Involved an apple.
Yeah, the classic.
Classic of blowing it out of your bathroom window, making sure all the fans are on.
Yeah.
Awake,
panicking,
you know?
like,
your towel, like, under the door.
You got the towel.
It was
turn on my shower.
I don't know why, but it hit me so different that I like turned into like this complete like shut down, and I was just like writing on my phone. And I wish I kept it. I didn't. I'm so sad. It was so good, but like. It kind of turned into, like...
My dad just texted me and said, give me a call back. I'm going to go call him right now.
Okay. But it turned into, like, this me, like, writing. And it was, like, kind of, like... Not, like... I hate to say, like, it was poetic. But, like, it was, like, a poetry kind of, like, formatting.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Because, like, now even when I do that, like, I don't even have to be using an apple and closing my doors kind of situation where I'll just be writing, and it always turns into like poems. So like my stories always turn into poems, so like that's why it's hard for me to like actually write a story, because like I can't get out of that like that blunt short matching flow. Like I can't like write a good story, because like I can't get into like the like the literature of like writing. It's like always turns into poetry. But I have them all on my phone. I wish I kept that one because it was crazy. Just went so wild. But I still have some of those like now. But
all my writing is inspired from dreams.
Really?
Which is weird, because I have vivid dreams and I remember a lot of them, and I turn them into stories and try and expand it, because it's always weird.
That's pretty dope though.
So my sister loved writing growing up, and then she became a slam poet when I was in like, I want to say late junior high, and then she was like, hey, you should get into this too. So I wrote a little slam poetry, and okay, let me just tell you, I don't have the poem anymore. I wish I did. I wrote this in like 8th grade, but I wrote a poem called The Garden of Eden, and it had all of the angst of an 8th grader.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And no one liked me in my school, because I went to a pretty Mormon school, and I am very not Mormon.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of weird. So that did not help anything.
It's okay. I only had 2 friends in middle school and all of high school, so yeah.
Fair. But I wrote a poem called The Garden of Eden, and I made a joke about the apple with, like, Apple products. And it's, like, it's one of my greatest moments in history. I'm still so proud of it. I wish I had it.
That's amazing. I've always wanted to get, like, into writing poetry or doing slam poetry, but then I'm like, this is just random shit I'm just spewing out. Whether or not it's good is besides the point. I remember castrating all of it. This was like over a year ago, so there's a lot more now, but I don't remember. She never really talked about it because a lot of it's like shit I don't really want to talk about, or like I'm fine with talking about, but I gotta be a level of drunk or a level of like I'm doing okay in life to talk about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of that's why I'm like I never want to share that because that's my business.
I think that sometimes that's when the creative juices flow the best, is when you're in a
bad
bad place, because you have a way to, you're trying to find a way to express it without, you know, at least in my eyes, like if I write short stories or stuff, like it's something that's going on that I want to talk about, but I don't want to talk about people, so I express it in like a story or whatever.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, no one's gonna ever read this. Like I don't want anyone to read this. They're gonna look at me and be like, the fuck?
Like you okay?
You okay, dog?
I feel that. That's why like a lot of my, or it's a lot of like mopey high school girl, like, oh my god, this boy doesn't love me. Or like I just like talk about that. You know what's like, it sounds so fucking gay, dude. It's so but I love writing like goodbye letters to people that are like out of my life. So I always write like after a breakup. I'll like initially when a breakup happens, I'll write a goodbye letter. And then 3 months later, I'll write another goodbye letter when I'm actually over the situation. And you can I love it because I look back and I reread them. And I'm like, there was one definitely where I read it and I was like, she's not over it. And then it's like, and it is 8 months ago. Final goodbye letter. I was like, I'm good now.
There we go.
It sounds so like high school girl writing in her diary, but like it really works though, because I've done it with like also like friends. Like I wrote one for, let's call her bitch.
Damn, got her.
Bitch.
Because I wrote about like how angry I was about the situation of like how like I don't know what happened to her, but all I know is that night she did not lead on to what she's portraying on social media, and it hurts me because I don't want to be that woman that's telling her that she's a liar and not believing her, because like what if that happened? But it's like, I was your best friend at that time. I know I was her only friend at that time, and you didn't tell me that happened besides 3 months later, and it turned into a different story because you told me it 3 times and it just now changed. So like I don't know, and I wrote a letter to her just saying like how shitty she was as a person, and how I wish she would just, if she ever had like the decency to please just like tell me the truth, so I could at least like not like, it's not even like a burden, like it burdens me that happened to her. It's more of like, I don't know what to believe, and it upsets me because I don't want her to be this fake person who's trying to get hyped for something that didn't happen to her when I know she didn't happen to her. But I also want to know if I'm in the wrong. You know, like I want to be like, hey, no, that really did happen. I'm sorry I never told you. But like I never got to talk to her, so I wrote a goodbye letter, and it never really affected me since. So
I still like think about like we hadn't seen her in so long,
like years
and years, and then all of a sudden, this is like one thing that like you don't realize how much people impact you until like, especially with like traumatic experiences and stuff like that, until you see them again, or like something brings them up in a certain situation, you know. Because we were just at a bar, we were just hanging out, and then all of a sudden Nate's like, don't look behind you, but she's there. And I literally had a full-blown panic attack and was, like, freaking out. And I was like, where's Holly?
Yeah.
And I was like, does Holly know? I was like, does she know that she's here? Because I'm freaking out. Is she freaking out? I don't know if we're freaking out. I was freaking out.
It was more like time. I was freaking out in the sense of, like, I gotta look like I'm cool. And then I was throwing up in the bathroom crying.
Oh, no.
And thank God she didn't notice.
But she was in the bathroom for a time while, like,
I was in the bathroom secretly crying.
Yeah. Before she threw up.
Situation or something else?
This was completely different. Like, I knew she was there, but, like, I'm glad that I fully broke down and Cass went into the bathroom after she left the bathroom, because I didn't realize she was in the bathroom with us for a hot minute. Just
I think she was trying to listen in or something.
Or she was just trying to she was trying to do something where it's like, you are literally just in the bathroom because you know we're in here. She
was trying to like kind of like get our attention and stuff like that in a way. And we had like another friend who was with us, and I was waiting in the bathroom while Holly was like in the stall and whatnot. And I was talking to her, and she's like, wait, so why are you guys like freaking out. And I was like kind of like whispering to her, and this whole time, like the thing is, I don't remember if this is like the entire time she was in the bathroom or like whatnot.
Half of it. It's kind of like she was a ghost where she just like, I'm here.
Literally, because then I'm like talking to her, and then my dad's calling me. Finally, Jesus. But yeah, she came out of the bathroom, and I was like, and she stood behind me in a mirror. And just like staring.
So not to push for more information, because I don't want to talk about
it. Yeah, no, it's not, it doesn't affect us. Go ahead. What's the question?
So is the situation with her that she lied about, it affected you guys drastically because you lost a friend and felt like...
No,
or did the situation...
Well, this was different because she was really bad to Cass, and she was awful to Cass. Like, she would tell Cass, like, your parents don't love you, they love me. Kind of thing. So Cass wasn't friends with her anymore. I was still friends with her because I didn't really kind of understand the situation. You know who we're talking about.
Yes.
But I wanted to stop being friends with her because when that happened to her, something else happened to me, and it was not a big deal at all. But it still affected me in a way. So I was talking to her one day, and then she changed her story because it was both about certain guys we met on Tinder. And mine was just more of like, I got in trouble by my dad, and that affected me in a certain way that like it changed myself in a sense. And then for hers, it was like an assault story where I don't know what happened that night. I'm not saying it didn't happen to her. I'm not saying it did happen to her. But I was already starting to stop being friends with her kind of at that time anyways. It just kind of was the icing on the cake of like, I can't be friends with you because no matter what I go she was like me.
One-upper.
She was a one-upper. You could be like, oh, I got hit by a car. She's like, I got hit by a bus. She'd be that kind of person. So like I was already starting to stop being friends with her anyways. This was just the icing on the cake where I was just like, listen, man, like I'm not like I didn't even like it wasn't even like that reason why I stopped being friends with her. Because I already stopped being friends with her. It was just like after the fact that I was just like, I don't know how much I could actually be friends with you because I can't tell when you're lying to me or not. And I can't be around people who just lie to me because, no one wants to be friends with a liar. Just don't lie. But...
especially with your friends, that's something that
thankfully
I've never really gone through in my friend group. Like, most of my friend group, we're all pretty... We've all... we all happen to go through a lot of trauma at the same time.
Yeah.
And everyone in our friend group during that time, like, either was going through something or had recently gone through something. And it was just... I always say it's unique because when I talk... like, outside of your guys' friend group, which is way more tight-knit than most people's...
we talk about it a lot.
My friend group was very not typical when you think about a bunch of bros hanging out.
Yeah.
Because we would have nights where we would all sit down and end up crying for hours because of like how fucking emotional it would get. But we were trying to work things out together, and I've never really experienced someone who I would consider a good friend lie about situations that were harmful to them because they would hurt the rest of us because we feel that pain. Like we just want everyone to be better.
Yeah.
And like I think as we're getting older, we're starting to spread apart, which just kind of happens. And,
and it happens.
You know, and
you just don't have time.
Yeah, and you know, it just blows me away that if someone was your good friend, that they would try and lie about situations.
Well, and that's why it was so weird is because the situation that happened, I picked her up that night. I remember certain things of that night being like, were not signs of like something bad happening. And I remember picking her up and her jokingly being like, hey, can we stop at McDonald's? I need a drink to cover my throat because I just did this. But she was almost like braggy a little bit about it, and I was just like, okay, whatever you want. Like I don't give a shit.
Turned into something.
And then like 3 months later, because then she talked about it again and like was like, this guy's so awful to me, but also I'm leading him on while talking to my ex-boyfriend. So, of course, he's going to be awful to her. And then she just... I don't know. See, the thing is, something could have happened that night. And I'm not saying it didn't. I just will never know. Because I don't care enough to know, to be honest with you.
So, with the bar situation...
It was more...
She saw you guys and then just kind of was like... trying to creep.
Because I think she was in the bathroom trying to hear whatever her cat... Like, she was probably trying to see what me and Cass would say. She probably thought we were talking about her. We didn't even talk about her until, like, the next day. We were like, ew, gross. And that was it. But I think she was trying to figure out what was happening. But I was way too fucked up, and I was in the bathroom crying about a situation that was embarrassingly a lot of people in the bathroom heard about, which is hilarious now. But at the time, it was something I would not have wanted her to hear.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But yeah, I guess because I was in the bathroom, like, before Cass, like, went into the stall with me, she was, like, got out, washed her hands, and, like, have you ever been to quarters where they have, like, the mirror, like, the don't let the bastards get you down?
Yeah.
She, like, that's where Cass and our friend was standing, and she kind of was, like, standing and, like, looking in the mirror, but, like, not really at Cass, and it was just, like, she, like, was there for, like, 2 seconds too long, where it was just, like, awkward. You're obviously, like, you want us to say hi to you, or, like, you want to talk, like, what do you want from the situation where it's, like, we're not friends, right. You're not even acquaintances. Like, she was so awful to Cass, and, like, she was bad to me, but, like, not enough that, like, I was still friends with her after high school.
Right.
Which is funny, because there was another gentleman that had the same situation where I stopped being friends with in high school, because it was like, he's a piece of shit person. And Cass was like, and then what happened to kind of me happened to Cass, kind of the same with her happened to me, and then we both stopped being friends with those people. But it was funny, because after high school, we were both like, I see why, like, we see each other why we stopped hanging out with these people on our own.
Right.
And then it turned into, but...
I'm just going to change something, keep talking.
But yeah, so... But that's what's crazy about, like, this book, too, is that, like, all these people have traumas, and instead of, like, bonding and, like, growing their stories, they're like, how do we become victims?
Yeah.
Like, how do we turn this into, like, a blockbuster film? Like, none of them cared about their stories anymore. They were just like, how can I make this into... This like, people, like hurting themselves, being like, this will show, like, my side of, like, how fucked it was, and, like...
And also competing with each other, because that's why he cut off his dick. He was like, I gotta one-up everyone.
He's like, what's gonna be the most fucked up?
Right.
Yeah.
Cutting off my pee-pee.
I think we do that. I mean, obviously the book is, like, metaphors and symbolism, like, all the way through.
All
like,
the way
everything.
through.
I think that we just do that naturally sometimes, like, whether it even be a story that we tell or something like that, we're just trying to push why we're affected more than others, when in reality, like, life is what we make it, and if you don't make life good, it inherently sucks ass.
Yeah.
It really does. But we have so many opportunities, especially in 2020, like, now, take aside everything crazy going on, but tech-wise and advancement and everything, we can make our lives really fucking good. It's just, if we wait around for it to come to us, we're going to be in our 40s and 50s wondering, well, why didn't I ever do this or that? It's because you sat there and waited and hoped. Hope isn't real.
Hope isn't real.
Hope isn't real.
Well, yeah, and that's, like, what brings back to, like, her is, like in that situation where we had 2 different experiences on Tinder, where mine was, like, if what happened to her was real, mine was nothing compared to hers, but does not mean that it did not hurt me in a situation where I was affected and changed a little bit. See, that's the situation. But also, too, just bringing it to us, like just, like, insult in general, like, anyways, it's just, like, things happen, and just because, like, one person had a situation of a certain, it's like one event happens and it happens to 3 different people, every 3 people are going to have it experienced in a certain way.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my friends said something. Okay, we used to get really high in her garage, dead of winter. There was, like, a small heater that didn't really work, and then we set up a fort of, like, her dad had reflective styrofoam walls, essentially. So we set those all up, and then we made 2 cots with pillows and a shit ton of blankets. And we would just go in there and get high and then cry. That was our fun time. And it was amazing. But one day she said, and she'd been through a whole lot of trauma, really abusive ex, some drug problems, and then she got through it, and we were talking, and she was like, how can I compare my trauma from what I've been through? Because someone who has never been hurt in their life, who has had everything, been pampered, never experienced any sort of hardship, a paper cut would be the end of the world. Like, that would be the biggest thing to them because of their perspective. So, how can I compare my trauma to that with our different lives, our different perspectives?
I agree with that, too, because it's like, I've had a very privileged life, but then again, my upbringing was so different to other people, but then, like, trauma affects me different than other people, and it's like, it's just like,
I think that's where society needs to change, and I think that's one of the lessons to take away is, like, you know, let's say me and Cass go through a crazy experience that are very similar. We would have opposite reactions, but instead of me and her competing over why mine was better or worse, and yours was worse or whatever, if we were to sit down and be like, hey, we went through the same thing, what helped you? This is what helped me. What helped you? And then we learn from each other, and then we take that experience and try and find other people in our community who may have gone through and be like, hey, just to let you know, we went through this. This helped for us.
What helped for you?
What helped for you? And now we have three people there now who all have experienced it, where we're not competing, but we just want to get over the trauma.
That makes me think of, we watched a movie last night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had a movie night. And the first movie that we watched was Uptown Girls.
Classic.
Classic. And the whole thing, like, you know, with like the teacups, and where she's like, that's like when her parents died, that she's like, I just wanted to go and just like spin around in these teacups until I threw up. And that's what I did, and like it helped a little bit, but like
she just kept spinning, she said.
Yeah, she's like, I feel like I'm just like, I keep spinning, and she's like, and I feel like if we go into it together, stuff like that. And then like the little girl ends up going to the teacups when her dad dies. Oh, my heart. But yeah, kind of like, you know, trying to relate to similar experiences, even though they're not exactly the same, but trying to find kind of like different coping mechanisms and like how they're different, but then also finding similarities in how certain things help people.
Yeah. Well, and it's, yeah, exactly. Because, like, I mean, both girls lost, like, the main chick, the older one, lost both of her parents when she was 8, and this little girl lost her dad when she was 8. And she had to deal with her dad being in a coma at her house for, I don't know how long. Yeah. So it's like, but, like, them trying to, like, her being like, let's go to the teacups and see if that will help, because that's what helped me as a kid. Right. But even then, the teacups didn't, like, help, you know? So it's like, but it's just, like, having that person that's like, hey, you're not alone, but just because I went through it doesn't mean you don't have to, like, you have to get over it, too, because look how I am. Yeah. You know, or it's not like, it's like, just because both situations happen to us doesn't mean, like, both solutions are going to help each person, but hey, this is what happened to me, maybe I can help you try to get over it or help you cope with what happened.
Well, I think the fastest way to grow as a person, just not only when it comes to trauma or when it comes to just everyday life, is learning from other people's experiences. That even goes into like, okay, if you want to go be an electrician, you don't just go do that. You learn from someone who's been an electrician for 50 years, and they learn from someone being an electrician for 50 years. So if you have like something going on in your life and you don't know how to like help yourself, find someone who has the experience, because I'm sure they're like, unless it's a one-off crazy thing that no one else has ever dealt with, there's probably someone who is in the similar realm that could give you help. And I think that since people are just universally like, the meme is like, oh, I hate humans, we hate humans, blah 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 blah, like everyone's starting to get further and further away from community and further away from, you know, being okay meeting new people, that we're going to lose that interaction and learning from those experiences. And that kind of scares me, because if it wasn't for other people in my life, I wouldn't be where I was at, where I'm at now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easily. And it's, well, yeah, that's what I agree with too, when people are like, I hate people. I also say that a lot, where I'm like, I just hate people. Yeah. But without like community, it is kind of crazy though, like how people are like, fuck my community, who cares? Yeah. It's more about me now.
This is about me now.
It's about me.
Because I look at the meme of everyone hating each other. It's like, at the end of the day, everyone's just a people until you meet them. You guys were just people to me until I hung out with you. Yeah. So like everyone out there are just people. There are shitty people. for sure. And I would say probably the majority are shitty. But there's still those people that you don't know who are pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah. Like, to bring up a good example is Bieber. We didn't realize Bieber was Wes's girlfriend, and we fell in love with her, and then Wes is like, that's my girlfriend. And
we're like, oh, hell yeah.
Where you just, like, you meet people. Like, and I mean, like, I get that a lot with, like, my book Instagram. I have people all over the world that I talk to all the time. When it's like, it's just great. Bless you. Or I'll talk to, like,
bless.
Just, like, just random people, and it's just, like,
you find out that people are cool.
Yeah, you find out people are cool, and like, and then you don't have to. Not saying you have to like people. Yeah. You just have to be open to trying to know them, and then to see if you like them. Because I'm judgmental, where I'm like, this bitch did one thing, I'm okay without knowing her. But like, most of the time it's just worthy, or more it's just me being like, I just don't want to bother.
I'm gonna show you guys this from Forrest. A little off topic. Does new work fit?
He kind of looks like he works in a bubblegum factory.
He looks like he works in Willy Wonka's candy factory.
Did you get a new job with Willy Wonka?
Salty Frank said, what you guys are explaining is very similar to one of the reasons that chronic illness usually comes with mental health issues. That is actually fact. I know that a lot of my family has like a chronic illness, and then along with that comes mental illness, which also is a thing where kind of like, one thing I don't think people realize is that mental illness is genetic. Yeah. And like, which is like a wild thing, especially because like, I didn't even realize that until like, I saw just recently, actually, my mom, she's been having a hard time at work, and then her boss basically like told her to like, she's like, shut the fuck up. She's like, you're doing awesome. You need to chill. You need to chill out. You're fine. And then she told me and my dad that, and we were both like, and she's like, and I didn't cry.
Hell yeah.
Right. And we were like, wow, nice. And she was like, I know. She's like, I'd actually looked like I had my shit together for once. And we were like, nice. And so like, stuff like that will happen. And then like I reflect on all of the things that I have done in my life, and I'm like, why am I acting like my mom right now? And it's because it is genetic, and also
well, and also too, like, on the other side of that spectrum, can we talk about Beautiful Minds, and how that gentleman's a complete asshole because his son developed schizophrenia, and his dad literally was like, buck up, kid. If I can get through it, you can get through it. You're a pussy, basically. He's like, I can handle it. Why can't you handle schizophrenia? That's the crazy part about that guy from Beautiful Minds, is that, like, it shows, like, him as, like, he overcame his mental illness. Like, he learned how to cope with having schizophrenia, which is so amazing. But then he shits on his son, who can't get over having schizophrenia, because it's not an easy thing to get over.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that he was able to and, like, learn how to live with it is completely crazy. Because, like...
What I think's weird, though, too, that goes on that, is I think there are some people who take that positively. Like, the old adage, like, hey, don't be a pussy. Because I have a friend of mine that, like, if he's feeling down, I've learned that that's just kind of what you tell him. And he's all like, oh yeah, I am B, sorry. And then he gets over it. It's not like it's even, he legit gets over it. He doesn't repress it. He's like, oh yeah, I was being a little baby, wasn't I?
Bitch.
I have that moment.
Yeah,
But I also feel like there's a weird disconnect from people who have been through trauma and they didn't have a community, or they didn't want that community and they overcame it by themselves. And there's that weird, like, I did it by myself. Yeah. Why can't you?
Yeah.
Like,
an ego with it.
Am I better than you then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's that belief that, like, I can do it myself. If you can't, then you're weaker than me.
Yeah.
And that's the shitty part, because it's like, just because you're stronger doesn't mean it. And also, most of the time, those people that are like, I got over it by myself, didn't really get over it by themselves. Mm-mm. They're really kind of still dealing with it. And even if they did get over it by themselves, it's like, it's good for you.
I think it's just the mindsets that are so different. Because if I got over something, and the things that I have gotten over, my first thought is like, don't need to brag about it.
Mm-hmm,
Who can I help if they need help?
Yeah.
And I feel like we're getting a shift in that socially. Like, it's less acceptable to be like, hey, I fucking did it. Why can't you? And it's more like, hey, here's some advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Take it as you want.
That's why I'm really excited for my kids' generation, because I feel like they're going to be so much more open and honest, because like I went on a Tinder date and he was like, and like my ex who's 5-6 years older than me, and this guy I went on a date with who's also 7 years older than me, both of them were like, wow, you're very open as a person. Most women my age don't talk like you do. Yeah. Like, talk about sex, talk about just being a dork, or just like talk about like things that happen to them that are like, yeah, this happened to me, but I'm okay now. And it made me better as a person, or it made me open more, or this happened to me and it made me closed off for so long that meeting then this new person, or like another trauma happened, then I realized like that's not okay for me. I need to do this. And like it's just like weird to me that like starting like kind of now, like it's starting to get like people are more open about talking like what happened to them. Like I think it's also too like a lot of the mindsets in like the early 2000s and before were like, don't talk about it. Don't tell people you got hurt. Don't tell people because they're gonna judge you. But then slowly people are starting to come out with that's happening to them, and they're like, that happened to you, that happened to me. Yeah. And they're like, no way, I've always thought that, like, I always felt so alone because no one I knew personally had that happen to them. So it's like, I feel like that's why I'm so excited for my children's generation, because I feel like you're going to be more open, and I feel like if, like, the cool people who are, you know, not racist, not homophobic, not transphobic, or just genuinely good people start having kids and start teaching their kids, like, my dad, like, my family on my dad's side, my grandma in particular, love her to death, but she's very deep-seated racist and very openly racist too. But like my dad, never. And he's even like learned like how to control like his microaggressions, or like to recognize when he has racist thoughts, because he's like, I didn't even think about it, like that is racist, but like I never thought about it because I was raised this way, and he raised me to not have those behaviors. So it's like us being able to like talk to our kids too. I think a lot of it's too like parents don't want to talk to their kids about like anything, because they're like, you're my child, I want to protect you.
I think I've never had my own kid, and I don't. So everyone says when you have kids things change, like mentally and all that, and I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does.
You gotta take care of something.
I feel like though, if you really want to make your child successful, you have to do those things. You have to show them that the reality.
Yeah, he is. Man in the back is the hottest.
Hey, what's up with it?
What's up with it, baby girl?
Like, little mama, you fart with that ass?
Hey, little mama, you fart with that ass? So tonight will be the night.
I think if you want your child to be successful, you have to prepare them for what is the evil of society, and talking about those issues. If you just let them go and figure it out on their own, they might get involved with friends or a crowd that are bad, but he doesn't know any better. So then he's just going to take those traits. Because that's how you become a person, right? It's like you are kind of your friend group in a way. And if your parents aren't actively telling you or showing you in a good manner, because there's obviously ways to do it that are unhealthy, and you start hanging out with people and they start teaching you the ways that their parents did, which could be awful, we're continuing the cycle.
I mean, you're a product of your environment, you know, whether that be like your family or your friends, or if you're even just kind of like,
or just like school in general. Like if your whole school is like deep-seated racist secretly, of course you're gonna like,
you're gonna be like,
you're either just not gonna talk about what you think, or you're just gonna go along because you don't want to be the kid that's gonna get bullied now because they're out of the norm.
Oh, exactly. That's a big thing. Like my mom, especially, she like is always confused on the way that I turned out. She will tell me that she's like honestly, she's like, I have no idea how you like became this. She's like, because during my developmental years, both my parents were gone, and I also was like in like I don't know. Just in, like, the whole entire developmental time, I was pretty, like, isolated, just in general. And so I didn't really have, like, a specific community until really I moved into Bountiful and I hung out with, like, Allie and stuff like that. And then we were, like... But I feel like we all had kind of similar things where we had to be kind of, like, on our own, in a sense, where we were all, like... so much our own person in a way, because you had literally nobody else to, like, kind of, like, go off of, in a sense, that's how we kind of attached to each other, because we were like,
oh, absolutely,
we were kind of like, you're fucking weird because you kind of had to be, because you were your only person. I'm the same way. Let's be friends.
You had that isolation of where you're totally free, because, like, I'm in the same boat. My dad was a single dad, and he worked 60-hour work weeks. I never hung out with my dad. And most of my childhood, like, my Saturdays were hanging out in his conference room watching The Simpsons. Straight up. I watched so many Simpsons in my elementary years. But, like you have, like, when you have that, like, kind of isolation in those elemental years, that's why I, like, feel like that's when, like, that's why weirdos hang out so much together, because it's, like, you're by yourself. You're not impressing anybody. You're just becoming yourself. Yeah. And, like, that's why I, like, low-key, like, I never, like, we're like, Dad, you were never there for me. Because he was, 100%. But it was, like, I still was so alone all the time. But that's how we became myself. Because I had total freedom to do what the fuck I wanted and to be whoever I wanted, because I was not trying to impress anybody. And even when I came home, my dad would come home, I'd be like, look what I did today. And he's like, fucking weird. Love it. Let's keep going.
Weird.
You take you to Michael's?
Love it.
You want to take me to Michael's? Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
For sure.
Yeah. No, I totally see, like, a complete parallel. And, like, you know, like, with, like, Nate and stuff like that, who, like, grew up with a lot of, like, not necessarily, like, a lot of friends, but a lot of, like, interactions and, like, you know, people around him specifically that, like, he did want to impress and all that stuff. And so, like, we'll have completely different reactions to certain things. That's, like, then we'll both come together and be like, why did you? And he's like, why did you? And we're like, okay, like,
we're trying to see each other, but we're not understanding.
But we're not understanding quite. Yeah, I realize that it changes somebody's, like, thought process on something. So because we have completely, this is actually one thing that, like, we had a whole fight about it, and, like, we were like, it was like almost like an entire breakup type of fight, where it was just like, it was, I love kind of the whole idea of, like, the philosophy of morality.
Okay. You
know, I'm, like, really into it, and especially in that time, and I was just kind of like, well, I don't know, I don't believe that there's necessarily any, like, there's bad people and stuff like that, but I like to assume that all people are kind of, like, neutral, and, like, you know, good people do bad things and bad people do good things, and it's just kind of, like, that whole thing. And, like, also, I don't believe in, like, kind of, like, an eye for an eye, because that leaves everybody blind, you know, that whole thing. But he's very, like, an eye for an eye person, you get me, I fuck you up as well, that whole thing. And then I'm kind of like, whoa, no, that's not okay. And he's like, well, I think that's okay. You know, and I'm like, I don't think that's okay. And we, like, had this whole fight about it until we basically were like, we need to try and realize each other's stances on, even though we don't exactly see what each other see, in a sense, and, like, we don't have the same kind of morality center. And we're like, just because we care about each other, we want to be able to understand why we do things the way we do, even though it's different. And even though it, like, doesn't make sense to me, then you have to think of the thought process of, like, this person went through something completely different that made them the way they are, and the way that they're, like, reasoning that, like, this is okay, and, like, this is my reaction to it, you know?
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about morality, is it is subjective to the person. Yeah. Because, like, what I would consider moral, like, how I look at morals, someone else would be like,
be like,
whoa, bud. Like, sex before marriage? No way.
No, siree.
No way.
Disgusting. Or you could even bring up the fact of, like, when you spill milk on the counter and you just walk away and don't clean it up, it's like, who raised you? A fucking cow?
Are you talking about our roommate?
Yes, I'm so just clean up your milk. You know how many times I, like, accidentally touch the counter, I just have milk on my hands? Too many times.
Which roommate is drinking all this milk?
Actually,
he drinks a lot of milk.
him and Nate both drink a lot of milk, and it weirds us out.
That's weird.
We're like, why? And they're like, we gotta have strong bones.
Well, because he'll he'll pour himself a glass of milk, and it'll spill on the counter, and then he'll drink his milk, put his cup in the sink, and walk away. And it's like,
clean up your milk.
Clean up your milk.
How do you spill milk? By like going like that.
I don't know, but it makes me cry.
2 shots of vodka.
2 shots of vodka, and then it's just milk.
And then you leave certain products in the shower.
So fucking funny. I literally was like, I'm gonna take a shower, and I'm like, what is that? Like,
what is going on?
It's like almost like I wish I found like a rat in the shower.
Yeah.
Because it was so shocking that I was like,
we're like,
I mean, like, you know, do what you gotta do. It makes the most sense to do it in the shower.
It's completely okay.
I like to think so. To make excuses.
The biggest thing is that we agreed for him to move in with us because he's a friend of my little brother's.
Yeah.
And he's
Hello.
He's like just barely 18, and he like doesn't know how to do anything in the world. But also his parents are like kind of really fucking shitty.
Yeah.
And they won't teach him anything. And they don't, they're just kind of like, and so he's been trying to figure this out. And so then we're just kind of like, you can live with us. We're going to treat you like we treat everybody else. And so like, if you don't pick up your shit, we're going to be like, pick up your shit.
Right.
I'm not your mom, you know? Mm-hmm. And actually he's like come to us and been like, I know that like, I don't do a whole lot of like what I should, but you guys have helped me so much in my life and like helped me grow more than like anybody else has.
Yeah.
Because like he's like, everybody that I've known will just kind of be like,
welcome to adulthood, fucker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or they'll just be like, he doesn't know better, whatever.
Yeah,
and we'll like say like, hey,
that's not cool.
That's not cool. When you spill coffee on the ground and it's wet and I
almost
slip in the morning and it makes my sock wet, so now I have to change my socks right before I go to work, I'm going to get a little salty.
Yeah, someone's getting yelled at. I've started my day one time where I don't know what happened, but I walked out my door just into wet, but I was in such a hurry that I couldn't change my sock.
Oh, no.
It was the worst day of my life.
I believe
it wasn't, but it was definitely up there. Because like 30 minutes into driving to work, I felt my foot starting to like waterlog or whatever, and it started itching.
No.
And then I work an active job, so like my feet.
Oh no!
It was like halfway through the day, and I'm like, I'm gonna murder things at my house when I get home. Just the cats.
I'm gonna punch a wall.
You're like, I understand why people snap now.
Is karma. Pour milk over his bed. Honestly, if we did that,
he would just sleep in it.
I was like, he would not change his sheets. He'd probably be like, yeah, it is what it is.
He literally would probably be like, when did I spill milk? Oh well.
Whoops. And then
even
just
if he didn't have his glass of milk that day.
I need to meet this guy.
He's great.
He actually is. What he said. So there's this book that he actually got me into. I haven't read the rest of the series and stuff like that, but I read the first one and it's so interesting. And he was like, if you guys ever read it on the podcast, I would love to also come on and talk about it because it's his favorite book, and he'll talk about it all the time.
It's a dystopian Red Rising.
Are there reptiles that shed?
No.
Like his penis?
But it has, like, body modifications to where you can look like a whole different person.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, that's like the black market.
Is it like, kind of like specials, but that was in the first book?
Sounds like Altered Carbon.
It's kind of like Altered Carbon, but they have, like, basically everybody has, like, a rank of kind of, like, it's, like, reds, blues, and, like, blah, 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 and then there's golds, which are, like, the top ones, and they're, like, rich and stuff like that, and he's a red who, technically, he had no idea any other place in the world existed, because they put them underground and have them, like, mine all this stuff for them, and they think that that's their entire being, and that's all who's there. And they basically will have like competitions to see who gets the most, like, to win food and stuff like that. And it's like a terrible place. And like if they go out of line, they basically kill the people, and then are just kind of like, sorry. And he ends up being, well, basically his like wife. I don't want to like spoil it or anything, you know. But like something bad happens. He ends up getting recruited by like this kind of like anarchist organization trying to like overthrow, and they're like, all right, you're about to be mind fucked. They take him and they like put him in this elevator and like bring him up to like the surface, and he's like,
what the fuck?
What? Because they're like, all these people are living in like this giant city, that's like beautiful and amazing. And they were told below the surface that the whole reason that they're there is to
I'm so hungry, sorry.
is to like mine stuff so then they can live on the surface. But basically, they've been living on the surface for hundreds of years, but they just haven't told the people below and have kept them in, like, imprisonment just so they can have free labor. That's basically the entire thing.
Damn.
Yeah. And so then he goes up there and they're like, all right, what we need to do is we need to put you in this whole gold category and try to make you kind of, like, infiltrate them through their ranks. And so they, like, completely modify his body. Because the thing is the golds, they have enough money that they can, like, modify their children from birth. So they're, like, stronger and faster and, like, all this stuff. So then they're, like, people are able to say that they're, like, elite, you know? And they, like, want to make their children the best. But he was originally, like, just a normal person. And they're like, all right, we need to recreate your entire body. It's insane.
That sounds pretty crazy, actually.
It's
I'd be down to throw it in the mix.
It's a really good book. I've already read it, but, like, I really want to read it again because there's, like, so much that I probably missed.
So, before we continue, I want to double check with everyone.
Yes.
You have a time restraint today, right?
Yeah, I just have to leave by 4.
Okay.
I have to leave by 4:30.
I have to leave probably earlier than that time, technically, because Bella was supposed to pick me up, and we were supposed to leave for the campground at, like, 3:30, but...
Okay, so...
We can wrap up here.
Yeah, here's the thing. So I need to work with Holly on our new podcast. People.
New podcast!
New podcast coming. We still didn't get through everything in the book, which let's give a shout out to the book having so much content.
Yeah,
like,
Shouts out Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk.
We can do like a 6-part, honestly, by like...
Honestly.
I say next month, if you guys are cool with this, and obviously we can talk to Bella, we pick The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, since it is a short book, and we plan out maybe like 15-20 minutes before the podcast. We'll do half final wrap up on Haunted, other half that book, because it's going to be just self-motivation. I don't think that book would last a full 2-3 hour podcast.
Yeah.
I think we could do that.
Okay.
I think that would be perfect.
Epic podcast moments.
Epic podcast moments, am I
Thanks,
right?
school.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Well,
So was
thank
that...
you guys for joining us on another podcast of Fun Adventures. And I really want to get us an intro, but I don't know how to talk to the person I know who can do it really quick.
Don't worry about it.
I will not do that.
He's not here right now. I have a friend who's a streamer. His name is Euphoric Rager.
Ooh!
Go follow his channel. He only most of the time he streams in music and performance, and he creates music, and it is fucking... It's a bop. It's a vibe.
It's a vibe. I really like watching people create music. It's so much
Watching
fun.
his mind work in the moment is amazing. Thank you for the follow and the sparks. Him and I are in discussion right now of getting a Read Between the Wines intro and outro.
Oh, that would be
awesome.
And
that would be dope. Okay.
I imagine he might be open to doing other stuff for us as well.
But
that's to come, so don't reach out to unless you really want to.
No, I don't. That's why I was like, it'd be a good idea, and then I was like, I had to talk to him.
No, probably would not be a good idea.
He probably would not talk to me either.
He'd be like, excuse me, why are you talking to me?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Did I do that?
But make sure to follow all the social medias. I will be back tonight with potentially 2 more podcasts of different things. I have a busy schedule tonight. And then Tuesday I will be game streaming, and next week will be more podcasts.
Yes.
Yay!
And follow our socials and Discord.
Yeah, Discord.
Follow us and we'll give you a virtual kiss.
Big smooch.
Big smooch.
Big smooch.
A big smooch.